Hello, everyone, and welcome to the maps of Unmatched. Um, just like how in Strategy Sunday we look over specific characters, uh, this time we'll just take a look at all the maps. Um, idea came from Ferry from the beautiful UN League Discord because he asked, "Hey, couldn't you make a video about all the center spots on all maps?" And I was like, that's a good idea. But just making a video on center spots would kinda be a waste. So I decided like, yeah, why not talk about the rest of the stupid shit concerning maps? Alright, so we will talk about every single map in Unmatched. Who would have thought? Um, Center spots, of course, and why they are important. Robin spots on maps and where they are. What Robin spots are, we'll see that. Um, Fighter preferences on each map. We won't dive into that too deep because, like, with all the fighters, I also have a map segment in Strategy Sunday. Once we're done with all of those, you can just look at that. But I'll just give a brief summary of which kind of fighters typically like each map. Um, some neat spots you might have missed. There are some cool choke points on some maps, on some not. And yeah, then we'll have a whole section about item tokens because to be honest, how many Marvel maps do you have? I think five. Yeah, you can't play those to their full extent without knowing exactly what the item tokens are, what you can do with them, which are important, and yeah. And then special map specific mechanics. So, centers. Um, I just have Cyprodon as an example here. Um, Centers are a spot where you can reach every single spot on the map with the lowest number of movement. So in this case, Cybertron has a move 5 center. You can see the red X there. If you stand there, no matter if you're melee or ranged, you can reach every single space on the board with a move of 5. And that's pretty important because in some cases your opponent will just be running away, and if you just run behind them in a loop or whatever, you probably won't catch them. But if you know you just need one last attack to finish them off, yeah, you just go to center, so you know you can reach them no matter what they do in the next turn. And it's really important to know where these centers are. They usually give you a ton of map control, versatility, what you can do, and allow you to attack almost everyone on your turn if you want to boost. So, centers from now on will be marked with this red X on the board every time we talk about a map. And one thing last, there might be multiple centers on a map. Because in some cases, we will have maps that have like 3 or 4 spaces from where you can reach every single space with move 4 or 5. So there's not always one definite center on these maps. Okay, next up we're gonna talk about Robin spots. Um, Short version, Robin spots are spots from where ranged characters can reach every single zone on the board with a move of 2. We have Soho here as an example. If you stand in this wonderful blue X space, you can see you can reach every single zone with just a single maneuver. And that's really good to keep up pressure and attack every single turn if you want. The name Robin Spot, by the way, comes from Robin's Hop 2 ability. It's really great because Robin on these maps can just maneuver, attack, hop back to the center, so he can always attack. It's really cool, and yeah, just like with centers, there may be multiple Robin spots on a single map. Um, I think there's only one example for that. But yeah, can be. And I might refer to genie spots on some maps if they are important. Genie, genie spots are just basically Robin spots, but you have move 3 to all zones instead of move 2. So yeah, On some maps, they're a bit more important than on others. So on some, there might be genie spots, but it's like not as relevant, so I probably won't mention them. But yeah. All right, let's get started. We'll start with Sarpedon, Battle of Legends Volume 1. Um, yeah, already talked about that in the intro to centers. Sarpedon has a move 5 center, as you can see on the board. Um, some other neat qualities. Player 1 can actually attack player 2 with a single maneuver first turn if they are ranged, because player 2 starts in this pinkish zone and player 1 there in the light blue. So they actually just need 1 point of movement to go there, and then they already can attack, which is pretty scary sometimes if you have a bad starting hand. Other than that, this map has many hard zone cutoffs, meaning there is like no double zone to connect two zones, or like the tri-zone we see on the right that connects like yellow, brown, and pink. No, sometimes it just switches zones in one space, like from green to light blue without there being a dual zone. That's what we call hard cutoffs. Also, Sarpedon is really, really big if you like look from one end to another. There's so many spaces there, so if anyone wants to run away, that's you might not be able to reach. That's also why centers are so important. And I would say it favors ranged fighters in the early and mid game, just because the tri-zones on the right control basically the whole of the middle of the map. So your opponent is probably forced into the red zone there where they can easily be pinned. Or if they just want to run away the whole game and don't have much chance to approach themselves, they'll go into the green or light blue, in which cases you're probably also fine. Although in late game, since you as a range fighter will probably have to end somewhere in those zones later because your opponent will still run to them, and they are hard cutoffs, your opponent will probably be able to reach you and they'll have a better time, like from my experience at least. But yeah, so early mid game, probably good for ranged. Later, can be good for melee because of all the hard cutoffs, but like range is always an upgrade from melee, so range is basically always better. There's no reason not to be ranged. Yeah. Next up, Memorial. Um, Memorial has also a move 5 center, as marked there. But actually, if you stand in the central tri-zone down there, there's actually only one space you can't reach with move 4, and that's the middle white space on the left of the tri-zone. I don't know if you can see my mouse, but it's like the one next to the dual zone. Um, that's the only one you can't reach with move 4. So technically it's move 4 center, but yeah, it's if you're exact, it's move 5. Just like with Sarpedon, player 1 can attack player 2 with single maneuver first turn if they are ranged. And this map, this map is good for ranged. Um, you also have a genie spot in the left and tri zone in the middle or center, that one. Um, from there, you can reach every single zone with move of 3. One of the reasons why this map is so fucking good for Medusa. Um, and yeah, you have these towers, basically. Um, these tri-zones that just control the whole of the middle of the map if you stand there as ranged, which is really scary. So your opponent is always forced to hide in some kind of corner, in which case you can just run away, make them boost, or they might even not be able to reach you, and then they have to double maneuver. So you always control the tempo of the game if you are on one of these towers for the most of the part. And yeah, it's just one of the best maps arranged in general. However, the white zone on top is often used to flee from the tower campers because they can't reach you there with a single maneuver, and of course they can't attack you first action. So those zones are usually pretty good. Like if your opponent is standing on the left-hand tower over here, you'll probably position yourself over here as a melee fighter, so your opponent would have to add Jason, and yeah, if your opponent is on this tower, you probably go here, so they still have to enter adjacent, or even go here if they if you want them to boost for one more. And yeah, so what usually happens if you have a sidekick and are ranged, you often position your sidekick over here in the central tri-zone in the white. So the sidekick is able to attack everywhere in that zone, and you yourself just go on one of the towers on the bottom, and then yeah, you have total map control. Like nothing your opponent can do about it. And yeah, this is just one of the best maps for range. If you don't know what to pick as a ranged fighter, this is probably always a good option. Next up, we have Sunnydale High. Sunnydale has a Move 4 center, as we see there. It's our first Move 4 center maps, and Move 4 centers are often pretty good because many fighters have like Move 4 spaces schemes, or our Squirrel Girl can only move a maximum of 4 spaces. Um, okay, no, I think that's only Squirrel Girl, but yeah. Just like with the other two, player 1 can attack player 2 with a single maneuver first turn if ranged. Trust me, this is not on every single map. That was just kind of a thing on the early maps that were made. The other Buffy map has that as well, but that will change. We have still favors ranged. Otherwise, this is probably one of, if not the best balanced map in the game, because like there are no big control zones in the middle where your ranged fighter can just camp and snipe the outer ranges. You have this kind of purple-ish area where melee fighters tend to hide, or you hide your sidekick there um, to force adjacency in some cases, and it's just a really good map. Like nothing much to say about it, not much special things. However, there are kind of genie spots everywhere near the center, because the map is just kind of. It seems small, but if you run from edge to edge, it's actually pretty large. But yeah, other than that, not much to say. Probably what happens in most games is like one of the players controls center, the other hides in purple. That's it. And yeah, next up we have the bronze. Mm, the bronze also move for center, as marked on the board. And like I said, player 1 can attack player 2 with single maneuver first turn if they are ranged. However, this map has kinda wacky connection lines. Because you'll see from center there, you have a connection to this what color it is. I'll call it orange. To this orange-ish space, but there's also a connection that's kind of in between them with the two dual zones. Don't mistake that for you being able to just use that as kind of a cross and go wherever you want. You can just follow this straight line. So don't get confused with that. Other than that, this map has some really nice places to hide as melee fighters if you're scared of ranged. The dark green and pink zones usually get used for that. However, since they are mostly just connected with two other spaces, one to the right, one to the left, it easily allows for pins there, so be aware of that. Um, Other than that, Genie spot right in the center, and yeah, solo fighters might struggle a bit on this map because like either they position themselves in the middle where they can just be attacked, or they go to the outer ranges where your opponent might have to boost, but then they can just pin you. And pinning on this map is actually really easy if you don't want to be attacked every single turn. But yeah, other than that, great map. Also, like nothing much to say about it. And yeah, next up, Soho. Already you talked about Soho a bit on the Robin spot slide. Soho has also a move 5 center, being these three bottom-ish spaces. And that shows again, center does not always have to be the central space of the board, because in this case, the Robin spot space there that we see is not center, like not at all. You have move 6 to some spaces there, and yeah, some fighters can't even move that far. Um, so yeah, we have a Robin spot in the central gray space, which is just automatically really, really good for ranged, because they will be able to attack you every single turn, except if you have something like a sidekick to body block certain spaces. Um, so the zone layout on this is just incredibly good for ranged. However, in melee matchups only, the rooftops that we see here, this kind of connection over the top here, um, is really good to hide some important or injured fighters. Because if your opponent, for example, is over here, you have your hero over there and you want to hide your sidekick behind them, yeah, they'll have to go all the way around to get to them. And in melee matchups, that's just incredibly good. Um, just one thing to say, if your opponent also has a sidekick or maybe multiple, you can be pinned really easily on that rooftop, so be aware of that. However, if you tend to have more board control than your opponent just from the fighter you picked, this is probably one of the best maps you can go for. If you control center, you can reach almost every time uh, with just a single maneuver with Robin Spot if you're range. Or you can flee to the rooftops later in the game if you have some important sidekick that you want to hide. And yeah, your opponent will just kinda have to react to your stuff and won't be optimal for them. So yeah, great map if you have more board control. Next up, we have Baskerville Manor. So this one was a tricky one, just like King Solomon's Mine later. This has technically a move 3 center. I say technically because in real game you probably never have a move 3 center. Um, because there are secret passageways. Um, secret passageways meaning you see those kinda locked connections on the board. You have one in the center and then one in almost every single corner. You can just move between those spaces as if they were connected. And that's kind of scary in some cases because it allows for insane mobility on this map. Like I said, technically move 3 center. But if your opponent stands on one of the other passageways, of course you are not allowed to move through opposing fighters most of the time. So you can't move through them, so they will block that. So technically, this shifts to being a move 4 center if your opponent is like in the upper left passageway. But I think I'll just mark it as move 3, but kind of think about it as being move 4. Also, just like with the other maps, player 1 can attack player 2, single maneuver if ranged. It's like, I think that's the last time that I will say this. Or will I? No, I think Yukon also has that. Or something. Well, yeah, obviously. We'll see. Yeah. Other than that, the top right corner, you can see there with the passageway, it has only one connection to this other yellowish space. And that means if you're up against a melee fighter and you put, for example, your sidekick on the passageway and your hero in front of him, your opponent can't do anything. Like, they can't reach him, they can't attack him. They might be able to do stuff with zone pings, but other than that, he is completely safe. Um, so typically on maps with passageways, characters with multiple bodies or ways to move through opposing fighters benefit from these maps a lot more because if you have multiple bodies, you can just basically shut down all the passageways with just putting a one health sidekick there, and you may be able to hide one of your fighters in the top corner and your opponent will have a bad time because if the passageways are all like not there, this map is hella huge. Um, and if you're able to move through opposing fighters, yeah, you don't care if the passageways are blocked, you can just move through. Um, so yeah, if you have one of these criterias in your arsenal in your deck, go for this. This is probably one of the best Moon Knight maps, for example, because you can just travelers to everywhere. Um, or like I said, if you have some important sidekick, you can hide them in the corner. And yeah, next up, Hanging Gardens. So this is the first map with a real special mechanic, with a unique mechanic, because like secret passageways we see on King Solomon's as well. Um, this has a move for center in this wonderful blue space in the middle. Um, and it has high ground. Now, what is high ground, you may ask? High ground are these wonderful kind of arrows on the lines that you see on the connections between spaces. And if you look a bit closely, yeah, I know the map's kind of small, especially if you're watching on phone or something like that. There is a small attacking symbol with a +1. So that means if you are, for example, on this central trizone over here and your opponent is standing in the center, if you attack them now, you would have +1 to your attack. No matter if they feint or whatever they do, you just have basically +1. So high ground on this map is immensely important because you see player 2 starts on a space where your opponent can have instantly high ground. So this map favors player 1 immensely at the start of the game. They probably just always maneuver, boost, and attack you with +1 because why not? It's just a huge benefit. And characters with many movement effects will shine on this map. If you are the king of positioning with your many effects, you can maybe mess with your opponent's positioning. You can warp around the map in a blink of an eye. You will love this map because you can almost always force some kind of high ground or exploit one because your opponent maybe wants to reach you, but then they end in high ground themselves. And then, you can warp behind them and attack with +1. So board control is key to make use of all of the high ground effects here as possible. If you can control the tempo of the game and make your opponent approach you, and you are standing on a space that has high ground to them, yeah, well, they might even consider just double maneuvering and overdrawing because they don't want to take the extra one on your next counterattack. Um, I might say this is not as big of a deal for ranged fighters because they can just kind of stay out of range of the high ground and still attack. But yeah, this is just if you have more board control, if you have many movement effects, then you will be able to exploit this map so good and deal hell ton of damage to your opponent just by standing on high ground. Also, one last thing, the pink and dark green spaces in the just right and left of the map are usually used to hide from ranged characters because like in the bottom right, those green spaces, they have no high ground connections at all, so that's kind of good. They're a bit isolated on the edge of the map. Um, on the pink ones, you have like the top left, where they're kind of isolated and they don't have any high ground connections, except like in their favor. They can high ground to the spaces next to them. Um, so if a fighter is hiding, it's probably in one of those occasions there. But yeah, other than that, this is just if you smack big and have a lot of movement, yeah, this is the perfect map for you. Next up, Point Pleasant out of the new Tales to Amaze set. It has a move for center in the middle, but I might say it's like almost move 3. The only space you can't reach with move 3 is like this bottom right space next to player 2 starting. So just just imagine this being a move 3 center map, which is ridiculous. This map is so incredibly small. Um, so the player who controls the center usually controls the tempo and initiative of the game because you'll be able to just attack every single time because that space is also a Robin spot, which is like insane. You can reach every single zone with a single maneuver if you're ranged, and it's just incredible. You can attack almost every single time, and even if you're melee, you can just boost for one and still get to your opponent most of the time. So if you control this space, you basically control the engagement. You can almost always get to your opponent. Your opponent probably will have to boost every single time to get to you again. Then you can double attack, and yeah, this it's just incredibly good, and it favors ranged characters because of the Robin spot, of course. However, since this map is so small, melee fighters can still do really good. There is this cool dark red space here over the right next to the Trizone. Um, and your opponent, if they are ranged and are standing like in the Robin spot in the center, they will have to boost to not enter adjacent to you, because with single maneuver they could only reach this Trizone and then they would have to enter adjacent. So that's some kind of trick you can exploit if you're melee on this map against a ranged fighter to kind of make them waste some of their resources or still be able to double attack on their turn, on your turn. So yeah, but other than that, this is just great map for aggression, great map for ranged. It's just actually great map overall, to be honest. And then the counterpart to Point Pleasant out of Tales of Maze, we have McMinnville. This is a move 5 center map technically, but it's almost move 4 because if you're sending one of these two central spaces from here, you have move 4 to everywhere except I think this space it was. From here you have move 4 to everywhere except for I think this space it was. So you can't just treat this as move 4 most of the time. Like, I had one weird game where I was playing as Moon Knight against Golden Bat, and we were just running from edge to edge with our move with boosting just to be sure the opponent cannot reach with their move 4 scheme on the next turn, which was that was such a stupid game. But yeah, I don't think that will happen every single time over here. Other than that, the dark gray and pink zones on the top right uh, can force adjacency if you're standing in like the central spot on each of those zones. Your opponent, no matter if they're ranged or melee, they will have to end adjacent to attack you, which is really good for melee characters. This is just a heavily anti-ranged map because the zones are so small, there are many hard cutoffs, and it's just a horrible map for ranged. Melee fighters really like this. Um, So you don't need board control on this to control the tempo of the game. Actually, I would say if you have less board control, you probably control the tempo more than your opponent does. Because if you're just standing in these spaces over here, your opponent will have to end adjacent to you to attack, and they might have to boost. So they're kind of wasting two cards to just attack once, and then you can just double attack freely, get two cards for two attacks, and they will have to run away again maybe later and repeat the process. So I think not having as much board control on this map is actually pretty good. That's why melee fighters like this so much. And yeah, just don't bother playing range on this. It's really bad. It's really bad. Next up we have, oh lord, our favorite map, Yukon. Yeah, you see there are a lot of marked spaces on this one. That's because this is the only move 6 centers map in the game, and it's ridiculous. Um, the loop, as it's referred to, this just kind of big, yeah, loop, circular formation. Um, this makes exhausting melee fighters so incredibly easy. This map is the bane of all melee fighters, basically. Um, if your opponent has a better fatigue game than you, ban this. Ban this every single time. you won't be able to reach. Like most characters that are like move 2 have like maybe one or two schemes that let them move a bit further and gain action, and then maybe one or two boost 4 cards. So yeah, if you have two schemes and two boost 4 cards, you can reach your opponent exactly 4 times, and then you can't do anything anymore. Which is just like, if your opponent can't just run away all the time and then just play their passes, yeah, you can't reach. Nothing you can do. It's so incredibly stupid. So yeah, ban this if you have the worst fatigue game than your opponent. If you have a better fatigue game, just pick this and win, I guess. This map is incredibly stupid. Um, yeah, the zoning also favors ranged characters because they can like at least hit some parts of the loop with these gray spaces in the middle. But yeah, one thing to note, the brown zone on the right, which is actually the smallest zone in all of Unmatched, I think. Um, that also forces adjacency, but to be honest, it doesn't matter. If you play a melee fighter on this map, you already lost. Most of the time, at least. So yeah, you can horrible map. Just ban it every single time. Like if you don't know what to ban, just ban Yukon. Yukon is fucking hate Yukon. Yeah. Next up, Sherwood Forest. I have to get that bad Yukon taste out of my mouth. Sherwood has a move 5 center in the middle. Um, there is a genie spot in player 1 starting space. You can reach every single zone with a move 3 there, except like the what color even is that? I'll call it white, but that doesn't matter because those zones always have like the white spaces have always like either green or yellow in them as well, because there are no hard cutoffs on this map, which is it should just tell you it's great for ranged. So yeah, you can reach every single space. Other than that, player 1 can attack player 2. First turn was single maneuver if ranged, which is incredibly good because as ranged you'll just maneuver 1, 2 into center, can attack, and you're in center. Woo! Um, Other than that, the dark green zone on the top right, which has like this kind of single zone space there, is often used to hide if you're melee. So your opponent, it doesn't force adjacency, but almost they'll have to end with move 1 next to you, which is still kind of good for you as a melee fighter, I guess. So you probably hide there most of the time if playing against ranged. Other than that, um, this map can be good for melees at the start because like you only have three spaces between you and player 2. So if you grow full on aggression and maybe scheme in turn 1 and then you can double attack instantly, which can be nice. So from early aggression, this might be good for melee, but other than that, since this has also some big loops, it has like no hard cutoffs, ranged characters can almost always reach with the genie spot. This map is just really good for ranged. But yeah, it can still work for melee. However, it's like not good. Next up, yeah, the exact opposite to Yukon in some ways. If Yukon is the bane of melee fighters, this is the bane of ranged fighters. It's Herod. Herod has technically a move 4 center, but to be honest, move 3 is usually enough if the doors are not closed. And what are doors, you may ask? You see, doors are these wonderful things that I didn't screenshot well. Yeah. And how doors work? Doors start the game opened, so you see they are just kind of in these wall foundations here. And if you end or just maneuver through a space that's like adjacent to the doors, which for this one is like 1, 2, 3, you can close this door, and if your opponent wants to open it again, they will have to maneuver. It's specially maneuver, not any movement effects, be on one of those spaces, and then they have to spend an additional move to open it again. For example, if this one would be closed and your opponent is over here, and you stand, for example, in this space, they would have to uh, do a maneuver, move 1 to open the door, move 2 to get here. So that can like make this map a bit bigger, but it's still the bane of range fighters because you have these wonderful light gray and light blue zones, where if you stand in these central spots in the zones, yeah, you force adjacency every single time. And ranged fighters hate that. Also, player 1 can attack player 2 with single maneuver first turn if ranged, and like you can even boost for 1 and attack with melee, because this map's just so incredibly small. Um, so yeah, other than that, if player 1 has a sidekick that is ranged, you can technically just double attack first turn because you can uh, place it in this uh, the orange red space. And sometimes the opponent, if they have sidekicks, they might place them over here in the red, and then you can just double attack, which is yeah, weird. But yeah, this is just best anti-range map in the game. Yeah, not much more to say. Next up, Raptor Paddock. Raptor Paddock is like the aggression map in the game. You have a move 4 center down there, and technically, if you're T-Rex, you have almost move 1. But yeah, this map also has a special mechanic, being the one-way arrows. Those are the like orange arrows that you see there in the middle, going down to the pit. And what one-way arrows mean? Yeah, it's kind of like self-explanatory. You can only move in the direction that the arrows are pointing towards. So you can move from the outside into the pit, but not otherwise. This makes pinning in the pit incredibly easy. Like, you only have to have one fighter over here or over there, and yeah, your opponent can't come out. Um, so if you have some movement effects and can get your opponent into the pit and then just aggress them, yeah, bye-bye. This is just probably the best map for every single aggro fighter in the game. Like, if you're Bullseye, Raptors, Tesla, whatever, if you're aggro, this is the map for you. Um, because it's so small, the pit is so incredibly strong if you get your opponent into there. However, it can still be pretty large if you look from end to end. I just say this because I just played some games in ladder as Winter Soldier versus Genie, and I was just running and boosting from the white to the green every single turn. And Genie also had to boost because then the map is still kind of large if you go from the zones like from end to end, but usually that doesn't happen, so don't mind that too much. However, both the light green on the right and the yellow whitish zone on the left force adjacency. So that's also really good for ranged fighters and aggro because you can just easily pin and whatever. This map is just incredibly good for aggro. Yeah, I think that was clear now. And then next we have T-Rex Paddock. T-Rex Paddock has also a move 4 center in the middle, those two spaces there. Um, Player 1 can corral player 2 on the first turn with a boosted maneuver. Now, what is corral, you may think? Yeah, you can basically just go over here and over there, place your fighters there. You don't even have to boost if you have a sidekick. Um, and you can just kind of soft pin your opponent because they will have to stay in this right area outside the paddock itself, if you can like see that on the map art. I don't know. And yeah, that's what players usually do on this map. Like if you are aggressive, this is just really good to start over here because you can just soft pin your opponent over there. They can't really leave, and you can just attack them next turn every single time, which is really good. And even though this is the map with the lowest number of unique spaces. I think it was 27, if I'm not mistaken. I don't know. Someone probably will count here, pause the video, and yeah. It's still really big if you just go from one end to another due to all of these kind of small loops that are in the map. Um, so be aware of that. If your opponent tends to be running away a lot, this might not be the best map. Although you still have move 4 center, so it doesn't really matter that often. Um, and also the dark blue zone on the right is often used to hide because yeah, you'll just be corralled there anyways. But it almost always can force some kind of adjacency because like especially in the top, um, if your opponent is like somewhere over here, you can just end here, and yeah, they will have to come over here to attack, and then they will still be adjacent to you. If they don't want to be, they'll have to move one more with a bigger boost, or just even go the long way on the bottom. So yeah, you can probably force adjacency sometimes over there, and it's just really good to hide because it's like with the gray you can attack from outside. With the light blue you have like more options to attack from outside. With this is just this small area over here where you can almost, not almost, you can always reach with move 2. So yeah, that's kind of good for melee, and yeah, this is just good map overall. However, I would say it's probably a bit favored for range because like I think there's only one height cutoff in the whole map, which is like this one over here. Um, well, like, yeah, you have this one technically, but you have a next one that's not hard cutoff next to it. So yeah, other than that, I would say it's maybe a bit favored for range, but still, if you can go first and aggress your opponent much, this is probably one of the best maps you can pick. And then we have the newest map added to our map total, being Azuchi Castle. Azuchi, even though this is like hella huge map, has a move 4 center in the middle there, which is like kind of funny because it's next to player 2 starting space. Um, However, you have so many narrow passages over here. Like these, just like you can get pinned there. You can get pinned here. 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 This map is holy. It's good for pinning. Um, Also, it has like these zone snipe spots, how I like to call them. Like from here, you have this random ass yellow zone that you can snipe towards there, and then here you have these random red zones that you can snipe there. I don't know why they are there, but I find them pretty funny. And it makes this like actually pretty good for range because your opponent can't just hide on the other side of the board most of the time. Like there's still spaces they can get to, but in some cases this leads to some funny double attack opportunities. Also the light green over here in player one starting and the brown zone force adjacency if you stand there in the middle, which is really good for melee. And this is just overall a pretty well balanced map, to be honest. Like ranged fighters have the snipe spots to still attack you from across the board. Melee fighters have those forced adjacent spots. You can pin very good if you want. If you have multiple fighters, however, you can also just there are many spots where like 4 or more connections, so you can also avoid that. It's a really cool map actually. However, one thing I want to say, you have to watch out for exhaustion a bit more because like even though this has a move 4 center, if you stay there and then move forward to anywhere, for example here, um, and then your opponent, which was like maybe here, moves just over here, there, what is that move? 7, 8, whatever you need to get to the other side, which is like incredibly large. So if you can avoid getting exhaustion on this map, it's like probably good for you. But yeah, just be aware of that. This can be one of the largest map in the game. And then the last normal map, I think. Well, normal. We have King Solomon's Mine. This is technically, again, a move 3 centers map. just like with basketball. Secret passageways, you see them, they connect wherever you want. Um, so it's just technically move 3 center because, to be honest, most of the time one person is hiding in this corner, one person therefore is over here, and then it's kind of move 4 center. I marked the space with a yellow X there. Like if your opponent is camping on this bottom right space, that's center for you with move 4 to make your life a bit easier. Other than that, this also has like the basketball space in the top left where you can just hide one of your fighters if your opponent is melee. Um, and yeah, just like with all secret passageways with basketball, characters with multiple bodies always to move through opposing fighters will benefit from this a lot more than others. However, I may say, I think this, while basketball is probably a bit better for melee characters, this is probably a bit better for range characters, just due to the fact that this bottom right passage is still in the blue zone, so your opponent can just stay in kind of center here and still double attack you, so you're not really safe there. So it's probably a bit better for ranged than basketball is, but yeah, this is just actually a cool map if you have like both just a hero and a sidekick. It's really positioning based, like who can force the tempo onto the other, who can just hop through the passageways, abuse them, and yeah, it's actually a cool map. And yeah, fun thing, if you stand with Winter Soldier in this in one of these two spaces and your opponent is like over here, you can get an 11 value marksman. Just wanted to say that because it's funny. That happened to me once, and it's ridiculous. But yeah. So yeah, next up, we have the item tokens. Oh no, it's getting out of hand now. Okay, so what are item tokens? Item tokens are these wonderful things you can see on the right of the slide there. Those are item tokens. That's it. I won't tell you more. Yeah. All item tokens can only be used once per game. So if you use them, they're gone. Um, you have the typical +1 and +2 tokens with this versatile symbol on them. Um, if you use them while you're on a space with them, um, they add a during combat effect with the given value to your card. Meaning, if you play something like a feint, and you say, yeah, I want to use the +2 token, you'll have a 4 value feint. However, if your opponent cancels the effects on your cards, the token will also be cancelled because, like I said, it adds a during combat effect. So that during combat effect will be cancelled, the token will be gone. So, other example, you play something like a snipe, um, and you use this, your opponent feints, it will just be a snipe because the token will be cancelled. However, if your effects are uncancelable, the token will also not be cancelled because it's an effect that gets added to your cards. And if your cards can't be cancelled, well, token doesn't get cancelled as well. Looking to you, Winter Soldier and Sherlock. And yeah, then that's just basically about the +1, +2 tokens. Probably won't have to say much more about them. Um, there are also the scheme tokens, which are like way more interesting. Um, you can use those just like a normal scheme if you use an action and then you do the stuff that's written on the token, which can be incredibly good, incredibly bad, whatever. It can be the weirdest stuff. Yeah, you just use one action to do the effect on the token. Those are the scheme tokens that we'll see. Scheme tokens are like the main thing about these token Marvel maps. They are like what defines the game plan on those maps, and we'll see why. But first off, we have the Raft. Um, the Raft has a move 4 center. The large zones benefit range fighters because there's like no corner you can really hide in. There's always like a spot where your opponent can just attack from range and be safe. Also, the position of the tokens in this case, you see on the maps there are like these Versatile symbols and the scheme symbols, those are where the tokens will be placed on every single map. And you see there are three of those just in the center. And like I said, scheme tokens are usually more valuable than the +1 or +2. Since you have two scheme tokens in the middle, controlling the middle of the map is very important. However, if we look at the scheme tokens now, and the other as well, we just have usual +2, +1, +1. That's like the normal stuff that we have on maps. It's either 2-1-1 or 2-2-1. So, yeah. But the scheme tokens, secret documents, discard your hand, draw 3 cards. Usually not used because like discarding cards is bad. You don't use those. And like drawing 3 after will also just dig you more into your deck. It's not great. If you're getting aggroed down, you don't have like you don't have a hand. Maybe you only have 1 card in hand, and that's like an attack. Yeah, you might use that to discard it and then draw 3. I think that's the only real way where you would use this. Other than that, pretty bad. Security camera. Look at an opponent's hand, draw 1 card. It's kind of good for hand knowledge if you like, if your opponent's already in your zone and you just want to take a small hand peek to know what you're attacking into, or to maybe know what they will attack with next. Just to have a bit more knowledge. Can be nice. Not the worst, not the best. Also draws you 1 card, so it's not a pass, which is kind of sad a bit. But yeah. Electrified floor, deal 1 damage to each fighter in your zone. Now this is probably the most useful one on this map, because that can just wipe out 1 health sidekicks in an instant. However, it also deals 1 damage to yourself, because it will deal 1 damage to each fighter in your zone, not opposing fighter. So be aware of that. Maybe you didn't expect that and you took 1 more and now you're in lethal range, maybe. But other than that, this is technically a pass, because it doesn't gain an action or draw your card. So yeah, probably the most useful token on this map, but like there are way scarier tokens on other maps. Next up, talking about scary tokens. Oh god. We have Hell's Kitchen. Hell's Kitchen has also a move force center. There is this top dark blue zone with the versatile token there that forces adjacency if you're staying on a space with token, which, as you can imagine, is pretty impactful because we have 1-2-2 here, so chances are high there will be a +2 token. And if you're a range fighter and you have to go in and attack a melee fighter there, and then they can counterattack you with +2, usually melee fighters have like bigger attacks because they are melee and are a bit restricted with those. That hurts. That hurts a lot. Other than that, the scheme tokens on this map are ridiculous. We'll look at that. We have the payphone. Choose 1 card in your discard pile and return it to your hand. That's basically a 3rd beast form, a 3rd big reveal, a 3rd witness, a 4th wishes. It's incredibly stupid what you can do with this card. Scheme token. You can just, if you have a crucial power card in your deck, like beast form, and you have kind of high board control, like Drac usually has, because he has also like 3 sisters on the board. This is your perfect map, because you can just get a 3rd copy of this incredibly strong card that's like way too strong for being a 3-copy card. And you can probably control the map with that. Then next we have the actual map token. Your next attack this turn can target any space, which is like also pretty dumb. This is like your main way to counter that blue space there in the top, but it's only like you can use it once. And then yeah, you can attack everywhere with your next attack, which is like good for melee fighters because like yeah, you don't care if your opponent is ranged, and on the other side of the board you can still attack them, but it's only once per game, so not that impactful, but it can help. And then we have the first aid kit, which says recover 2 health, draw 1 card. Now this can be incredibly dumb for characters that usually don't have healing in deck, like maybe Black Widow or Bullseye. Like if you get 2 extra health on these characters, that's huge, because there's a reason why they don't have healing in deck, and now you give them 2 additional health, which is insane. Also, just one thing to note, all of these tokens are technically passes, because Payphone just gives you an extra card without drawing and without gaining action. Map just is not gaining action and not drawing cards or whatever at all. And the first aid kit, yeah, it draws you a card, but first it recovers you 2 health. So you would, in fatigue wise, you would recover the 2 health, then take 2 again, but your action is still used. However, if you maneuvered, otherwise you would just take 2. So it's kind of a pass. It's like not great, but it works. So yeah, this map, playing with these tokens, controlling these tokens is insanely essential on this map. Whoever gets the payphone is like has huge advantage. Whoever gets the free 2 healing is also like big stuff. Map is not that impactful to be honest, but it can lead to some funny finishing moves like if you're drag and yeah, you just finish with a beast form from across the board. That could be funny. Yeah. Like I said, if you have high board control and some crucial power cards, or maybe no healing, otherwise this is just perfect map for you. Next up, Navy Pier. Move Force Center, also Robin Spot. Robin Spot, ladies and gentlemen, we have a Robin Spot. This map is just all about who gets the slushy. Now, what's the slushy? The slushy is one of the item tokens, one of the schemes that says recover 3 health. Now, we talked about earlier how recovering 2 and then drawing a card is already strong for characters that don't have healing. This is way better because this just gives you free 3 health. That's like Black Widow had 16 health, or Bullseye was a 17 health fighter, which is like, oh, it's so stupid. Um, recovering 3 health this is insane. And also, it's kind of a super pass because where the first aid kit also did draw you a card, this doesn't. So you can play this first action, recover 3, second action, maneuver, take 2, so you skipped your whole turn and recovered 1. That's basically vanish from Invisible Man's deck. This is insanely good. The other tokens, to be honest, are like not that great, but they're still good. And we have the Zoom, look at the top 3 cards of any deck, put them back in any order. Now, this is probably most impactful for like inconsistent characters, like maybe Winter Soldier, or characters that want to blind boost, maybe Strange, maybe Daredevil, whoever has some kind of blind boosting Alice, for example, maybe with Maxim. That can be great. And then Helium balloons, move 2 spaces, gain an action. This is just additional mobility, which is kind of good. Can just get you to slushy faster in some cases, or just close distance to your opponent without spending an action. It's just good. It's like nothing special. Just like with bronze on this map, we have these crossing lines, so don't get confused by that. And that the light blue zone on the right will usually force adjacency. Like if you're standing in the center there, there's only this yellow-blue dual zone on the top that isn't adjacent, but like if your opponent is on the bottom side of the map, yeah, it doesn't matter. They probably won't get there. And yeah, just again, the placing of the tokens kind of encourages camping on this map because you have 2 of the +1, +2 tokens in the middle in this yellow and orange zone. So they're pretty accessible from center, and you can reach basically everywhere if you're in one of those spots and just yeah. And like the scheme tokens are on the edges of the map most of the time. So there's a huge chance that Slushy is either on the top left, or bottom right. So one of the fighters will usually just camp on Slushy, and since they don't want to get attacked with +2 or +1 from the middle, they will probably have the other fighters, if they have any, also in these corners. So yeah, purple, blue, also kind of the dark green over there. One of the fighters, one of the players will probably camp there, to be honest, until like Slushy is not a thing anymore. Maybe one of or two of the tokens in the middle have been used, or your opponent just moved away from them. So yeah, it is an interesting map, but like usually who gets Slushy wins. It's just that's easy. And then second to last, I think, Helicarrier. Move for center, Robin spot, ladies and gentlemen, we have a Robin spot. Um, on this map, controlling the middle section of the map is key because, as you see, the middle section has like these many tri-zones and scheme token and a also versatile token. And if you look at the position of the other tokens, we see that one of the scheme tokens is on top in this like uh, white corridor zone there. So that can lead to some easy pins. And what's more important, the other scheme token on the bottom left. If you're standing there and use the token, yeah, you can be pinned with just one fighter. So even solo fighters can pin on this map, which is ooh. And because you are on a scheme token there, you probably want to use it and go there actually. But then you leave yourself open to get pinned by just one fighter, which is like insane. That spot is really cool, actually. Mm, so what usually happens on this map is like one player controls the center because you have the Robin spot, you have center, you have like all the freedom to go to whatever token you want. You have one token there just right at you, and the other person will usually camp in like either the white over there to also have control over one token and like force your opponent kinda into some adjacent stuff. Um, or in the light blue on the right, which is like weird zoning, to be fair. Like maybe there should have been one additional space with light blue. I don't know. It just looks a bit weird. So you'll probably hide there and one player in the middle. And if we look at the tokens, we have just 221. And then we have the EMP pulse array. All players discard 2 cards. Now that can be funny. Um, if you are, for example, Winter Soldier and you just have a ton of crap cards, yeah, you use that, your opponent will probably have to discard better cards than you have. Or if you're Black Widow, you can discard 2 yourself to artificially lower your hand size and play Budapest. Um, or anything else. If you just have bad cards on hand, you might consider doing that because your opponent will probably have better cards in hand. And then, yeah, also, one funny thing, since player one's starting space on the left there has just moved to one of the tokens on top, if the EMP pulse is there, and for example you have a shit hand, you could just keep the shit hand. If your opponent keeps their hand as well, because they have maybe something good, you just move up there and play that, if that should be the array, the EMP pulse, you just discard 2 crap cards, and your opponent is like, shit, why did I keep my good hand? Now I have to discard good cards, which can be funny. Next token is like uh, pretty strong. We have the laser turret, deal 2 damage to a fighter in your zone. Now, if there is no other fighter in your zone than yourself, you'll have to deal the 2 damage to yourself, because it isn't a opposing fighter. So this can be great auto damage potential, just to get additional damage in. 2 damage is actually pretty good. However, since your opponent usually knows where that token is, they will probably not end in your zone to just give you that free damage unpunished. Which is like, eh, can be hard to trigger this. And like from my experience, it always ends up in the top white zone, and you just can't use it at all, which is funny. I don't know. Maybe that's just me. But yeah. Otherwise, dealing 2 damage to your opponent for free is really good. And yeah. Last up, we have the Rocket Plaque. Rocket Plaque? What even is a plaque? Is there an English word called plaque? I don't know. Rocket Pack. Place your fighter in any space. Just teleport. Why not? Can help melee fighters close distance and maybe surprise attack. Also, all of these are passes, technically, if you can use them correctly. Like if you deal 2 damage to yourself with laser turret, yeah, it's not a pass. But other than that, kind of good map at all overall. Like probably favors ranged a bit more because like the big Trizones in the middle and you have Robin Spot. Um, but yeah, melee fighters can still work. You can pin your opponent with while you're alone. You have this like corridor on the top that you can maybe force adjacency somehow. And yeah, it's just a cool map. And then last up we have Sanctum Sanctorum. Now, this is the only actual move 3 centers map in the game, which is, ooh, that's just the opposite of Yukon. While Yukon is just way too big, this is just way too small. Like, holy. Move 3 characters can reach every single time without boosting, which is, why it's so dumb. um, Also, we have Robin spots basically everywhere there in the center, which is like even more stupid. This map is so incredibly small. Um, yeah, and then like you have no hard cutoffs, so the ranged characters are also really good. And this is just the ultimate, just I'll hit you to death map. There is no running away here. There is no fatigue here. There's just bam damage. So, talking about the item tokens, we have the Astral Ring. Move each fighter up to 1 space. That's like, meh, this is not great. The only real use this has is to move opponents like from spaces with item tokens to other spaces. That can be pretty neat. Like you could, for example, okay, that's actually a cool scenario. Let's imagine you're on this top left scheme token over here, and your opponent is camping right next to you. You can play this to move them 1 space to the right, maybe move yourself on the +1 or +2, and then attack them second action with the token that they wanted to use, which is that can be cool, but like usually that doesn't happen. And then that is just mainly used to prevent your opponent from playing the Brazier. And talking about that, the Brazier of Bomgaliath? Bomgaliath? I don't know. Play a scheme from your deck as a free action. Ooh, you can imagine that's crazy good for decks that rely on schemes. Like for example, Panther just gets a free Shuri scheme with that. You can just play that and yeah, for free. Or Houdini can get a free Magicians or set a stage, whatever. Um, Genie can get a free Wishes, which if you only have 2 in hand, yeah, fuck it, you have this to get the third one. Uh, This token is incredibly good for scheme heavy or scheme reliant decks. So if you can control that and you have this kind of fighter, yeah, this is incredibly good map, especially for Panther. Like Panther is a melee fighter that just boosts and deals damage, and then you get free Shuri scheme, and map is so good for Panther. And then third one is Daily Bugle. Draw 3 cards. Put a card from your hand on the bottom of your deck. Now this is pretty similar to the secret documents, I think it was, on the raft, where you draw 3, but instead of discarding your hand, you just put a card from your hand on the bottom of your deck, which is like, can be nice. Like, there's a funny scenario with any Christmas where you can just put a boost 3 on the bottom of your deck to have the Charlie card that like looks at the bottom of your deck and adds boost value to get that up to 6, which is I think bottom dealing it was. Which is like funny. Other than that, drawing 3 can be nice if you're getting pressured, which is like pretty likely on this map because it's so fucking small. And yeah, other than that, drawing 3 is like it's like not the best, but it's good. Can help. And yeah, this map is just it's insanely small. It's technically good for ranged, but since it's so small, it's also not. This is just the ultimate, like I said, brawl, just kill your opponent map. If you plan to be aggressive, this is one of the best maps you can get. If you have some kind of scheme that you really rely on, this is also probably one of the best maps. And yeah, it's kind of insane how small this map is. And yeah, that was it for the maps. But I have something special here. It's the item token tier list. So, of course, placement of the tokens may change depending on the given matchup. Um, for some people, the brazier is like non-existent. They don't care. For some people, it's like the best thing in the world. So yeah, that can differ. But we'll just start in D tier. We have the Daily Bugle and Secret Documents. It's like both of the draw threes, Secret Documents being like even worse because you discard your whole hand, which is like it's so you don't use that very often. The circumstances where this is actually useful is just it's so unreliable. Um, Daily Bugle, it's just basically Secret Documents are better. You just draw three, basically put one card you don't like on the bottom, so you technically get two cards where instead of with a maneuver you would get one. Like yeah, it can be good, but I think on a map like Sanctum, you'd rather go just Unga Bunga attack. Um, and then C tier, we have the EMP Pulse Array. It's still discarding two cards. For most fighters, that's not great. Um, there can be some neat scenarios where you can just discard bullshit or just get your hand size down for a Widow to play Budapest or whatever. It can be good sometimes, but or if you know your opponent has like a crucial card in hand, they have only two cards. Yeah, you can play this, but it's also like not the best because discarding two cards, usually you don't have two crap cards in hand, and it feels bad. The Electrified Floor, it's nice to get rid of one half sidekicks, but because your opponent knows where this is, they probably won't bunch up all their sidekicks in your zone to play this. And it also deals one damage to yourself, which is like not great. Usually you just deal one damage to yourself and your opponent zero. And then it's like, yeah, he could have just attacked and dealt him one damage and you didn't take one. Which is like, better. Um, Helium balloons, just getting this movement is nice. Nothing bad about this. Can help you get to slushy, can help you close distance to your opponent. It's still only two spaces, so kind of like a free maneuver, but yeah, nothing special. Astro Ring, I've put one above in B tier because you can move each opponent uh, as well. Like you can move each fighter on the board one space, which can be nice to mess with their positioning, get them away from item tokens, and yeah, that can be a bit better. Rocket Pack, just warping anywhere you want, is also kind of good. Can help for some surprise attacks, or just as a pass to run away later in fatigue. The Zoom, this was probably one of the tokens that will vary the most between fighters because like looking at the top three cards of any deck, it's fine. Most of the time it's like not that impactful. You know which three cards are coming next for your opponent, or you know which three cards you get next. It's like not the end of the world, but also not that great. However, for blind boost characters, this can be much higher, to be honest. Secret camera, I think, is just kind of the zoom in a bit better. Although the zoom is a pass, this is not. But with security camera, you get to look at your opponent's hand, which is like probably up to 7 cards of hand knowledge, whereas the zoom would give you technically 3. However, it's not a pass because it draws you cards, so maybe not as great, but still I'll just put it in B tier as solid. Also, the +1 tokens for attack and defense are also just like solid. Why wouldn't you take a +1, to be honest? And yeah. Then in A tier, we have the actual real good tokens that I would probably plan around while playing a game. We have the first aid kit, where you can just recover 2 health and draw a card. This can be incredibly good for fighters without healing in the deck, or if you just need a bit of heal, because you also draw a card, so you're like, it's not an opportunity cost because you still draw the card that you would have gotten from a maneuver. And the map, where you can just attack from everywhere. It's kind of similar to Rocket Pack, but with Rocket Pack you probably still have to end adjacent to them and then attack when you use it. So you leave yourself open a bit more. I think the map is a bit better because you can just stay across the map and then attack. To be to be fair, if you want to just aggro more and get to them, yeah, Rocket Pack is probably better. But I think in most cases, I prefer map just a bit. Then the +2. +2 is just better than +1. Who would have thought? And yeah, you'll have to think about when to use them and not to get smacked by +2 attack, usually. And then the S tier tokens, laser turret dealing 2 free damage to your opponent is like, it's really good. Nothing you can complain. Payphone getting an extra beast form, ridiculous. Slushy recover 3 health, probably the stupidest of all of these. And then Brazier, it's like playing a scheme as free action. Schemes are usually pretty powerful effects on them, and they can just give you some crazy stuff, opportunities, whatever. And yeah, those are like the top notch of the tokens. So yeah. And then lastly, the center summary. We have Yukon as the only move 6. Then move 5 we have Cyberdon, Sherwood, Minville, Soho, and Memorial. Move 4 center we have Raptor Paddock, Rex Paddock, Azuchi, The Raft, Hell's Kitchen, Helicarrier, Navy Pier, Herod, The Bronze, Sunnydale, Point Pleasant, and Hanging Gardens. And then move 3 we have Sanctum, Baskerville, and Solomons, although be aware that Solomons and Baskerville are usually not move 3. On paper they are, but if your opponent just stands on one passage, they're not. And yeah, that was it. Thank you for watching. I hope this gave you a good overview on the maps of Unmatched and what to consider when you have to pick one, like what you have to watch out. Maybe there's some spots that force adjacency. Maybe you could learn something about the tokens and how they're used and which are like important. And yeah, feel free to write feedback or questions in the comments. And yeah, until next time.